Окей. О, надо плоскотно. Найс. Какой ужин? О! Остерегайся, то чего, о чем просишь? Понял. Информация, которую получишь, создаст больше вопросов. Тебя поплавит. Дефиг столько ботать.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games.
Chris Wilson.
Thank you so much for joining us today as we
Спасибо
unveil Path of
за
Exile's
то, что вышли.
3.13 expansion. This release contains everything you've come to expect from a Path of Exile expansion release. A new challenge league, new skills,
новая лига, новые
items,
скиллы,
metagame
новые айтемы,
rebalances, and an
ребаланс.
in-game content update which will leave a lasting impact on Path of Exile. Our team have been very hard at work over the last few months, and we've got a lot up our sleeves to share with you today. But before we jump in, we wanted to mention that Twitch drops are enabled for the duration
Не
of
забудьте,
this
что
live stream.
Twitch дропы
Below the
включены на
stream, you'll
всех
find the
стримах по
instructions
Path
to
of
link your
Exile.
Path of Exile account to Twitch, so that you're eligible to receive drops. 2020 was certainly a difficult year for development, but it was also one that saw a lot of big things happen with Path of Exile.
Но при этом дофига происходило.
In late 2019, we held our first Exile
В конце
Con
2019
convention, where
мы
we
провели
announced several
первый
projects, including Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile
Exile
Mobile.
Con.
Throughout 2020, we developed 4 major
2020
expansions. Delirium,
у нас было
Harvest, and Heist,
4 дополнения.
as well as the
Delirium,
one we're going to
Harvest,
unveil today.
вот это вот все вы
We
знаете.
launched on the Epic Games Store and released our Vulkan renderer and a
Запустили
macOS client for
Vulkan.
Path of Exile.
И много чего хорошего сделали. Мы гордимся, чего вы добились. И хотим в 2021 быть круче.
Thanks again for being here with us. It wouldn't be possible without you.
Базиба.
Так,
сегодня что будет? Трейлер. Потом более глубокое объяснение. Потом про новую лигу. Потом баланс changes. Потом ZED будет общаться с чатом. А потом бэкласс будет сразу. Найс. Йоу. Это надолго. Надолго. О! Я не запускал игру! Я уже играю? Это уже 3.13? Я готов. Врываемся. Давай, создать персонажа. Залогинься. А? Что ведет тебя путь? Справедливость? Месть? Честь? Лут? Нет? Мощь! Ого! Флеймбласт. Смотри, что ты делал. Йоу. Симпатично. Ага. Твои способности будут протестированы, сломай их. Брутал. Йоу, what the fuck? Одиннадцать новых карт. Новые скиллы. Ascendancy? О, йоу, Harvest. Реально Harvest? Heist. Ритуал, лига. Ритуал? Найс. Прикольно. Harvest плюс Heist плюс ритуал. Сами звезды замолкнут, глядя на то, насколько далеко ты сможешь зайти. Echoes of the Atlas. Nice. Very good. Блин, ролики хорошие.
We've released, what, like 35 trailers so far over the last decade, and I still get shivers watching each new one. Props to our
говорит, что этот больше всего нравится трейлер всех. Эх, Атлас, типа того, да. Отзвуки, не знаю. Отголоски.
In 2016, we introduced the Atlas of Worlds, a formal progression system for Path of Exile's endgame maps that culminated in a pinnacle boss fight against the Shaper. Since then, the War for the Atlas and Conquest of the Atlas expansions have expanded the Atlas system, introduced new endgame bosses, broadened mechanics,
говорит, то, что у нас
added
был...
new rewards, and provided
Какие у
more
нас
opportunity
изменения
for
Атласа
mastery
были?
of Path of
Сначала
Exile's
Atlas
endgame.
Worlds теперь.
The echoes
Вот
of the
тема.
Atlas
А
expansion
после Atlas
introduces a new
Expansion.
pinnacle boss, a new way to fight many map bosses
Новый
at the
босс
same
эта
time,
тетка.
11 new maps to explore, and
11
new
новых
endgame
карт.
rewards to earn.
Ингейм награды для этих боссов. О, как красиво. Когда заходим, встречаем мужика вот этого. Несмотря на то, что Алдор ушел, влияние не прошло. Ага. Maven — это последний босс. Впервые встречаем Maven на карте, так что она усложняет босса. Ага. Если ты убил босса, то он дает бекон. Так ты проходишь туда, и она смотрит, как ты дерешься. Типа. Ага. А после этого она тебя пускает в специальную зону, где ты можешь моб-боссов типа. Ага. То есть, короче...
Except this time she wants to watch more and tougher fights, and her next challenge will contain 4 bosses, then 5, then 6, and finally.
Короче, мы с каждым разом будем все больше боссов спаунить.
If you're persistent and talented, you may even get to fight the Maven herself in a very difficult boss encounter designed to challenge the strongest and best Path of Exile players. Completing the Maven's challenges offers the opportunity to acquire some very powerful new rewards, including Atlas passive skill points, craftable watchstones, and even the Maven's orb.
Craftable watchstones? Wow.
As you complete the Maven's
Atlas passive trees?
you'll earn a new type of passive skill point that can be allocated on a special passive skill tree in that region of the Atlas of Worlds.
Для каждого региона.
Each of the Atlas's regions has its own passive tree, and they generally have around 20 nodes to choose from. You can earn up to a total of 10 skill points per Atlas region.
Fuck?
Let's check out some of the Atlas passive choices in the Glennick Cairns region.
Это очень круто.
This branch allows you to focus on Beyond, increasing the amount of experience granted by Beyond monsters, but also allowing you to spawn more Beyond monsters really easily. The Torn Veil notable will drastically increase the quantity of Beyond demons you can
encounter. Новички!
The Legion branch has a notable passive which increases the amount of time
ну это потом почитаем. Короче, каждой ветке на разные типы лик-механик.
The Incursion Branch allows you to more easily get higher tier rooms in the Temple of Atsuatl and helps you make a definitive decision on whether.
Прикольно, то есть здесь получается больше шанса заспаунить эти темы. Офигеть! Это настолько сильно! Вау! Это очень сильно. Это очень сильно. Это очень сильно. Вау. Это очень сильное изменение. Причем еще в разных регионах разные. Ой, класс. Класс.
The Torment branch can increase item drops from possessed and touched monsters, as well as populating the area with some already possessed monsters. These synergize quite well with the sextants that guarantee a certain amount of rewards from possessed monsters. The Delve branch can increase your sulfite gains,
Sulfite gain.
Master Favor, and grant more Nico Master
Master Favor это вообще огонь, конечно.
Notable passive grants sulfite for defeating map bosses.
Блин, круто.
Whether the area has Nico present.
Круто, что они добавили индивидуальность в разные регионы. Это прям круто. Это настолько много всего интересного добавит в плане. Блин, это круто. Шанс... Там шанс ту дроп типа Pure Bridgestone были? Вау. Да.
There are two types of existing watchstones. Quest item ones that can upgrade a region and can't be traded between players, and unique ivory watchstones that provide special bonuses and can be traded. These unique ones are consumed after a number of maps are run. The Echoes of the Atlas expansion introduces 3 new types
Нам
of
добавляют 3 новых
titanium,
типа.
chromium, and platinum. Like regular watchstones, these never
Титановый,
expire,
хромый,
but
платиновый.
unlike regular watchstones, they can be traded and crafted. They are found quite late in your progression through the Atlas.
Они типа на
The
красных
eventual
картах
goal
будут,
is that you
видимо.
replace all of your base quest item watchstones with the new craftable ones over time
В
as you
идеале
upgrade
ты
your
типа
Atlas.
постепенно
Each of
заменяешь.
these 3 types of new watchstone has its own special mod pool, but there's also a
У
shared
них разные
mod pool that they all
модпулы.
draw from. Like flasks, they can only be normal or magic. You
Вау.
can't find or craft rare watchstones.
Охренеть.
Because you can have up to 4 watchstones socketed in a region, up to 8 mods can affect that region, and some quite large bonuses to specific
Охренеть.
content can be stacked.
Охренеть.
When
Это
combined with the
такой
Atlas passive
такой
trees,
джуз
these really
Атласа.
allow you to optimize
Охренеть.
what content you encounter and the rewards from that content.
То есть это...
The Maven's Orb is an endgame crafting currency item that can only drop from the Maven herself.
Так,
It
а
allows
что
you
с
to
Maven
craft
дропается?
influence modifiers when 2 or more are present on an item by removing one modifier and upgrading another. When upgrading an influence modifier of the current highest tier,
Remove
it
one
upgrades to a new
influence.
elevated tier that can have additional properties. This foul regalia has 2 Crusader influence modifiers on it.
Так.
The percentage increased intelligence 1 and the physical damage taken as lightning damage 1.
Так, если два
When
мода
we apply
есть,
a Maven's Orb to it,
когда
it
мы
randomly
кидаем
removes
Maven
one
Orb.
of these mods and upgrades the other one to become an elevated influence mod. In this case, it upgraded the increased intelligence mod to also have +1 to the level of socketed intelligence gems. The other influence mod was removed. This opens up a mod slot, of course, so it's now possible to add another mod to it. Let's YOLO exalt it for good measure. Maven's Orb crafting is only going to be performed by the upper echelons of elite players, and pushes the boundaries of the best items that are possible in Path of Exile. One of the things that players look forward to in an endgame Path of Exile expansion is new maps to play. In Echoes of the Atlas, we have added 11 new types of maps to the Atlas of Worlds, covering a wide variety of environments. And of course, each comes with its own challenging boss fight. Let's have a look at 4 of these new tile sets.
4 новых тайлсета, говорят. Ага. Пустынька. Блин, прикольно. О, какой прикольный босс. Это прям P2 босс. Водичка. Это Звездные войны, блин. Симпатично, чё. Больно?
One of the reasons why these new maps look so good is that the environment art tile set and level design teams working on them have been doing so much work on Path of Exile 2 recently. And it's not just the 4 maps
Блин,
that we
круто
showed
выглядит
here.
вообще.
There's 7 other new maps with their own bosses to discover.
Выглядит очень круто. Вау.
Whenever we release a new quarterly Path of Exile update, we start a new challenge league. These are essentially a fresh server to play on for that expansion launch, where players explore the new league, rush to conquer the new economy, race to level 100, and try to get the best items before their friends. The challenge league being released alongside Echoes of the Atlas is the Ritual League. In the Ritual League, you'll discover several mysterious altars in each area you explore.
Будем находить алтари загадочные. Убиваем монстров вокруг него, активируем. Короче, монстры с анслотом поднимаются, которых ты убил внутри. Плюс специально. Плюс зависит от того, какой именно алтарь. Всякие моды добавляются. Ага. А, ты получаешь трибьют за это? И можешь покупать... О, блин, это так круто! Чем больше ты подряд в одной зоне выполнил... Ага. О, блин, это так круто! То есть, если, чем больше ты убиваешь в одной зоне, тем больше шансов на хорошие шмотки. И при этом ты можешь лочить те, которые тебе нравятся. Но потом, типа, оставлять, если не хватает трибьюта. Блин, круть. Круто! Крутая система, мне нравится. Новые базы. Новые базы. Обалдеть. Это левел 70. Это сильно. Это сильная база. Increased effect of Fortify on you, your Crush. А Crush? Ага, Crush убирает Fizz Damage Protection. Это круто для кастеров. Это очень круто. Это очень круто. Типа с Vigilant Strike'ом персонажи прям хотят это. Вау. Это может быть очень много, кстати. Это прикольная база тоже для тапок. С этим можно играться. Тут не видно, ну сорян. Я уберусь. Ща уберусь. This increases both the difficulty and rewards of the rituals, as well as generating even more tribute to spend on those rewards. Nice. For example, because there's a chance of encountering a Headhunter or Mirror of Calandra as rewards, using ritual vessels increases the chances you'll be offered those items and allows you to afford them. In addition, you can use these vessels to substantially increase monster density in maxed out maps that have mechanics like Beyond or Delirium present. Using vessels, you have control over the risk and reward of your hardest ritual encounters. Vessels are tradable both before and after they contain monsters. Чтобы увеличивать количество мобов. In addition to the new endgame content, тоже, я не ждал, что они будут Ascendancy менять. Не ожидал об этом. Вот это вообще не ждал. Они нам рассказали, как получить Ascendancy, наконец-то. Все переработали. The aim of these changes is to redistribute and simplify power so that Ascendancy passive skills perform stronger single functions more effectively. Офигеть. Let's check some of them out. The Elementalist has always been a good general Ascendancy class for many elemental builds. В смысле, что во все изменения внесли? Офигеть. Now you can pick which elemental ailments to use for greater build customization, as well as providing more consistent power against tougher enemies. Блин, элементалист топ. The Elementalist can also protect themselves from a large amount of elemental. Но говорят, что элементалист, типа, первое, что изменяет, это элементалисты. Ввели Bastion of Elements. Primal Ages. 100 damage per node. Лично Primordial. Increase dash per summon для големов. Ага. Йоу, у голема автоматически ресамонится. Это так круто. Вау. Previously, the Shaper of Desolation skill forced you to improve both shocking and chilling. То есть у нас отдельные ветки у нас на отдельные стихии. Shaper of... Ага. Always shock, always chill, always ignite. И можно отдельно через каждый билд. Крут. Exposure. Минус 25 экстра резиста. Вау, это много. Класс. Они избавились от Геральт штуки, это круто. Инквизитор изменили. Воу. Йоу, Blade Blast Inquisitor, это Inquisitor. Inquisitor. Ну, он просто рассказывает о том, что такое Inquisitor, да, есть такой подкласс. А что с билдами будет? Так. 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 Каспи добавили, неприятно. On ground, increase damage taken to enemies. Короче, теперь верхняя ветка чисто дэмэдж. Крит страйк шанс. Нифига себе. Нифига себе. Йоу, чё? Один инкриз за стринджу. More attack damage.
But it now grants 10% more attack damage for each non-instant spell you've cast recently, up to a maximum of 30%. It also grants Battle Mage, which causes you to gain added spell damage equal to the damage of your main hand weapon. This provides a lot of new hybrid spellcaster melee build possibilities.
Нифига себе. Нифига себе, это может быть очень сильно.
You can combine instruments of virtue with the new instruments of zeal ascendancy passive. This introduces the concept of fanaticism, which causes spells you cast yourself to have 75% more cast speed, reduced mana cost, and increased area of effect. Fanaticism is gained by using attacks regularly, giving huge bonuses for weaving attacking and spellcasting
Spells you
together.
cast yourself. Блин, это круто. Deadeye переделали? Вау.
But over time, more of these effects have shown up on items, and the Deadeye has lost much of what made it unique. We've brought the uniqueness back to this Ascendancy with a variety of new mechanics that enable new ways.
Походу рикошет добавили.
Let's have a look at the new Deadeye Ascendancy skills. Far Shot now deals 60% more damage to enemies far away from you, which is up from 30% before.
Нифига себе, 2 раза фаршот усилили, круто. 2 раза фаршот усилили. Мне нравится, как выглядит вот этот паттерн, он, конечно, прикольный. Видно, что есть опции. Рикошет раньше дал чейн, а теперь они отражаются от террейна. О, это какая-то технология SPOE 2.0, честно говоря. Это технология SPOE 2.0. 2 экстра прожа? Больше. Больше. Мираж Арчеры не прикреплены к вам? Они теперь отдельно от вас бегают? Окей. Gale Force теперь дается, да? Less damage per... Блин, прикольно, они добавили дефенса еще сюда. Найс. Крит страйк наносит блид, еще рапчер. Рапчер more damage from bleeding. Да, теперь смотрится интереснее еще намного. Вау. Вау. Эффект Марк? Это очень сильный баф. Так. Slayer еще лучше. Реверт Сандер, пожалуйста. Зачем вы показываете Сандер в этом ролике? Реверт Сандер. Наконец-то. Обратно вернули. Плюс френзи. Да, это хорошо, это хороший баф. Хороший баф. Так.
Hopefully you now have a good idea of the scope of changes that we've made to the 19 Ascendancy classes. While the biggest changes are to the three we're heavily revamping, the Elementalist, Inquisitor, and Deadeye.
Он все покажет. Он все покажет. Если так, то сейчас народ запринтскринит. Мы посмотрим. Блин, обалдеть. Столько очень инфы новой. Вау. Еще не все. На следующей неделе покажется. Скилл-гемы. Поехали. Что ввели парочку. Так. Гидросфера. Сфера воды. Пока она врублена, можно... Cold или Lightning Element накладывает. Ага, то есть если ты рядом с ней пуляешь фризинг пульсом, то она всех фризинг пульсом пуляет. Если ты лайтнингом пуляешь, то она лайтнингом пуляет. Прикольно. Блин, это такой прикольный скилл. Он еще конвертит физ или... Короче, она физовая изначально. Скелет все может нормально. Тринити. Any hits that deal damage with a specific element will build resonance with the other two elements. The more resonance you have of every element, the more damage the Trinity support gem provides. Прикольно. When you have high resonance with all three elements, Trinity also grants elemental penetration. Вот показывает статус. Ян показывается. Вот, сверху, смотри, слева заряжается. Типа, чем больше ты разными стихиями бьешь, тем сильнее заряжается резонанс. И когда у тебя максимальный резонанс на стихии, то пенетру дает. Ну это саппорт чисто. Саппорт скилл такой. Саппорт гем. Вот он перечислил скиллы, на которые тоже там бафнули. Seismic трапы бафнули. Elemental hit, к слову, да, вообще норм. Но вы уникальны этому. Echoes of the Atlas introduces 10 new unique items, some of which are exclusive to its new endgame encounters. Let's have a look at a few. These are some unique worm skull boots called Legacy of Fury. They place scorched ground as you travel, which applies to scorch elements enemies standing in it. When scorched enemies die, they have a chance to set fire to surrounding enemies, dealing a percentage of the slain. Ну это все, ну это прикольно, но это не для ХК. Поддержку клауна бокс. Oh, yeah. This is a new unique amethyst ring called Black Flame, which is themed around fire and chaos damage. Its headline effect is that your ignites now deal chaos damage, along with a cool new chaos ignited effect on monsters. Chaos ignited effect? If you ignite a withered enemy while wearing Black Flame, the wither will no longer expire. Прикольно кольцо. To its maximum of 15 stacks, if the enemy survives long enough, that is. Прикольное кольцо, которое выглядит как будто для Хиггсбласта. Я думаю, что это для Хиггсбласта кольцо. Очень похоже на Ignite Хиггсбласт. Может вообще заиграть нормально. Циферки норм. They also reduce your enemy's physical damage reduction. When we have time during an expansion's development, we try to identify past leagues that can be integrated into the core game as optional side content, with a few improvements. This expansion contains 2 such leagues. Значит, хор идет Harvest и Heist. Скажите. Да, это Harvest, да. Не поняли, что крафтинг опции были супер сильные. Что слишком быстро персонажи получили.
When deciding how to integrate Harvest into the core game, we knew that we had to curtail crafting somehow, but we didn't want to just do this by nerfing it a lot. We needed a smarter solution that still allowed
они врубили Discord рано. Нет!
We also knew that we didn't want players to have to grow and manage their own gardens every league.
Уйди.
So let's check out how Harvest works as part of the core game in Echoes of the Atlas. In Echoes of the Atlas, as you play through maps, rather than finding a seed cache, you now encounter a portal to the Sacred Grove.
Мы видим портал. Это не наш. То есть уже установлены. Ага.
The grove contains several pairs of harvests to choose between.
Можно выбрать между двумя.
You can only pick one of each pair, so carefully choose which crafting options are best for you.
Nice.
The monsters and use their life force to perform the crafts.
Так. Это прикольно. Это хорошо, мне кажется. Это очень прикольно, мне нравится. Если убиваете, то, дает довольно много разных опций. Теперь у нас есть в хайдауте 10 тех, что можем засейвить в карте крафтинга. Эй, магма штуки. Эй, поздравляю всех, кто насобирал. Дроп пришел, расходимся. Так. Контракты падают 6-го акта.
Markers drop with higher stack sizes, and quest contracts are now dropped for you at the next smuggler's cache as soon as that quest is available. One great aspect of Heist is that all of its progress items are tradable, so if you're focusing on other content, you can trade away your contracts until you're ready to go on some heists.
Так.
So we've covered most of the big features of Echoes of the Atlas so far.
По сути, просто хайст просто в коре. Харвест прикольным образом в коре, мне нравится.
Soon we'll move on to the Q&A about today's announcements. But first, let's have a quick look at the new supporter packs that are available right now to celebrate the Echoes of the Atlas expansion and the Virtual Challenge League.
Очень круто выглядит, реально, прям очень круто выглядит. Прям вау. Ля, какая.
A download of the digital soundtrack, and of course exclusive cosmetic microtransactions such as armor sets and character effects. The Renegade series has an exclusive pet, and the Faithsworn series an exclusive portal effect. Each series has 2 packs, and the smaller packs can be upgraded to their respective larger packs at any time while they are still on sale. These are, of course, in addition to the new core packs that were released a couple of weeks ago. Remember to check those out if you haven't already.
Коровые паки.
Thanks so much for your support. As you know, purchases of these packs are what fund ongoing development of Path of Exile, its expansions, and its sequel. Speaking of Path of Exile 2, we know you're keen for an update. While today is all about Path of Exile and Echoes of the Atlas, we have plenty of Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile mobile updates planned for you this year, which will start sooner than you think.
Говорят, что сегодня про Path of Exile 2 ничего не будут рассказывать, но быстрее, чем вы можете представить, будут новости по PoE 2 и по PoE на мобилке. Random Support Pack в Drops. Ну да, закинь пару косарей. На ящик ggg.новоязеландия.pathofexile.com. Че, пролетел с дропом? В смысле, полчаса нужно насмотреть просто. Может, ты полчаса не насмотрел. Просто смотри. Тебе не привязан? Так привяжи сейчас. Чё? Какие проблемы? Тут несколько часов будет. Да сейчас встанет, не переживай. Блин, офигеть вообще, конечно. Честно, я под большим впечатлением. Я не ожидал, типа... Я ожидал, что это будет что-то не такое большое. Не, круто, круто, вообще круто. Что в самом начале было? Пересмотришь потом, в смысле? В самом начале про новый атлас рассказывали. И Там все сочно выглядит. Там все очень интересно выглядит. Реворк классов? Не переживай, каждые 4 месяца какие-то реворки происходят. Скиллов, классов, еще что-то. Баланс сильно меняется. Так придет, чё? Ну типа, я не знаю, как именно это работает, но вполне возможно, что оно не сразу придет. Нормальная тема. Связал Конован, говорит, перфоратор неделю шло. Где искать билды на старт в будущем? Как не дохнуть, дойти до эндгейм контентычей? Закидывать трупами сюжетку. Анализировать, почему ты умер. Играть более... Начинать играть с более дефенсными билдами, максимально дефенсными.
To the Q&A segment for today's reveal. Thank you very much for joining us, Chris Wilson.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks very much for hosting. That was a lot of fun, actually.
Chris Wilson.
That was the, I think, since ExileCon, the most dense info reveal that we've had.
Что со времен ExileCon, на его взгляд, это самое плотное.
Exploding in chat, saying too much with the heads exploding.
Yeah,
плотное представление информации.
With this announcement, you know, we had a lot of fun presenting everything ourselves to the players last year on stage, and we thought.
Вот я говорю, что им понравилось во время ExileCon все так типа вживую рассказывать игрокам, и поэтому они решили в таком формате это сделать.
So I was trying to recapture that ExileCon magic a little bit, which I think everyone is kind of in need of at the moment.
Говорю, что им понравилось, да, тоже.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good distraction away from real world stuff and a good chance to get
хороший
stuck into some
шанс.
PoE in the new year.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump into some questions, and this is a live Q&A. So you of course post your questions in chat as well. Chris, phone's off, Chris.
Yeah, well, people are just calling me on Discord because they see me on like Twitch.
Люди названивают ему в Дискорде, говорят, просто потому что не видели его в онлайн-твиче.
Hey Chris, wow, do you realize you're on the internet? We're going to jump into some pre-made questions, but you of course can submit your questions in the chat. We have a team of mods who are pulling questions.
Говорят, что будут подготовленные вопросы, будут вопросы из чата, моды отобрали, которые...
Echo, the new overall major expansion.
Echoes of the Atlas,
the core
новый
game expansion, really end game focus. With this character, the Maven. So this seems like an expansion to the Cyrus and Conquerors endgame.
Это выглядит как
in a similar fashion to how the Elder
обновление системы с Сирусом, типа как Элдера добавили к Шейберу. Есть ли какие-то сторилайны, которые с этим связаны? Вот, он говорит, что Maven Stuff, ну все история с... Что история с Maven и вся эта тема параллельно идет с Сирусом, то есть они не пересекаются, если ты не хочешь особо.
The Cyrus stuff still exists in parallel. We haven't taken anything away. Though we do want to foreshadow that it's very likely that before the release of Path of Exile 2, we'll probably remove or potentially modify the Cyrus storyline as well. We're still evolving the end game in the direction we wanted to be in for the release of PoE 2, but the Maven will probably be around for some time.
Вот он говорит, что не факт, что Maven останется к PoE 2, но пока что она будет на какое-то время.
This seems like a further exploration of that, which I'm pretty excited about. But what led to the decision to
что привело к решению пойти таким путем, типа как с Элдером, прикреплять сбоку саму историю?
The writers have a lot of plan for what they want to do in the future, and it is leading up to. I mean, we haven't talked a lot about the story of Path of Exile 2 and what's going on there, but we do have an overarching plan along our franchise, and so it's important for us to drop hints and set things up correctly with Path of Exile 1 in the meantime.
I still remember years and years ago when you said you had like a plan for 10 acts and a decade worth of content and things like that. Well,
вспоминает про то, что вот там типа
still going along with that like long arcing plan then.
Stretches out another 10 years now.
Долгодущие планы есть еще.
That's good to hear.
Вот, и Зиги вспомнил про то, что там вот мы на 3 актах сидели, а потом резко 10 стало. Как работает цикл Maven, спрашивает Зиги. Это происходит параллельно с планом Сируса. Да, можно, говорит, можно Сначала Maven заспаунить можно, сначала Сируса и так далее. Когда ты используешь map-девайс в зоне, ты жмешь на иконку, и она появится на карте, чтобы с ней драться. Ее присутствие делает карту более сложной, и ты зловишь как раз копию босса. Вот, когда ты набираешь нужное количество боссов, и дерешься. Вот, и когда ты собираешь 10 боссов, убиваешь и получаешь штуку для крафта. А потом все повторяется.
Progression there is what dictates your passive points that you unlock on those region trees. And so there's 5 sets of 2 points that you receive for completing the 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10 boss fights, respectively. And then, of course, after completing the 10 fights, you have the opportunity to occasionally potentially challenge the Maven herself.
После того, как ты закомплетил 10 боссов, ты каким-то образом можешь подраться с самой Maven.
Yeah, okay. And you said this in the initial reveal, it said that this kicks in around like a few tiers into the Atlas. You start.
И эта тема с Maven начинается...
You don't need nets for that, right?
Ну, там, наверное, видимо, то ли с третьих, то ли с желтых карт, видимо. Они берутся после того, как ты 10... Ну, типа, энкаунтер с 10 боссами проходишь, насколько я понял. С старыми гвардами ничего не изменилось. Все так же.
Fighting them outside of that is often a lot easier in comparison. So how will the boss fights here, these Maven boss fights,
как босс-файты будут скейлиться в плане сложности? Делаешь 3, 4, 5 и так далее.
Because there's multiple bosses at the same time. But by the time you need mods in order to make them harder, that's when mods start to kick in on the invitation items that you get for the farmable 10 boss fight. So that one's craftable. And so you definitely want to,
то есть ты сначала без модов их лутаешь, а потом постепенно ты можешь дополнительные моды еще на них навешать, на этих боссов.
Okay, I have a few questions from that. Unexpected ones. You mentioned invitation items, so there's an itemized system here.
So the first invitations that you receive.
Первые приглашения, которые ты получаешь на босс-файт.
From the Maven to go to her realm and fight some locked-in bosses. They're quest items, basically.
Они квестовые айтемы. То есть первые 10... То есть ты каждый раз получаешь приглашение, по сути, следующее. Примерно как у нас были Elder... Shaper Memory фрагменты. Вот 10-й, он как раз tradable item.
So they have the bosses on them, on the item, and also mods, it sounds like?
So to be clear about that, you're locking in bosses on your Atlas at any time, and the item is entirely separate. And so you'll, of course, have the item by the time you have the bosses because they drop at a similar rate, but it's entirely possible that you do have surplus items that you want to trade to other people. And it may be that you're going for just harder bosses, like you want to lock in 10 incredibly difficult and rewarding ones rather than 10 of the easier ones.
То есть ты можешь разных боссов из региона закреплять.
Okay, and does the bosses you choose have an impact beyond just difficulty?
You know, I don't actually know the answer to that. Does anyone who's watching over here want to clarify? Yeah, it's just the difficulty. And of course, you know, people will have strategic reasons to fight.
Можешь ли ты... Типа, если разница каких боссов блокируешь, ну там, лут разный будет или нет, ты говоришь, нет, в принципе, не важно.
Can you put like multiple of the same boss in, like 10 guitars or something?
Можно ли 10 китов одновременно запустить? Говорит, что вряд ли сейчас.
You're fighting unique ones, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
Говорит, нет, что 10 одинаковых нельзя.
It's actually the first thing I thought when I saw it was it reminded me of those videos you put out of like bosses fighting each other. Is it kind of inspired by that or something?
Well, it's interesting because when we initially designed all the map bosses,
эта арена выглядела...
right? You know, there's various triggers and distances and all that kind of stuff.
Выглядит примерно так же, как вы раньше публиковали всякие видео, где там всякие боссы друг с другом дерутся. Вы оттуда идею взяли, говорят, что ну там частично, да, мол. Говорят, что они, да, пробовали поместить несколько боссов на одну карту, там, поэкспериментировать с этим тоже.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, I imagine it was difficult to get things like Katava and stuff that were very locked in place, working in different arenas. I'm afraid that we're going to see things like Katava starts dragging himself around by the arms or something like that, terrifying like that.
Well, wait and see.
Okay. So in terms of the Atlas here, it seems like a pretty substantial step up in complexity with craftable watchstones and the Atlas passive trees,
да,
which
по
look
поводу
pretty insane
Атласа
alongside the current watchstone progression
мы увидели ощутимый
which a lot of
шаг
people
по
feel that
усложнению.
it's a pretty complex system for a lot of people, I think. How do you think
Уже
the
довольно
average or
сложная
newer
система.
players are going to handle?
Как вы
How do they handle the current
думаете,
Atlas, firstly? And how do you think they'll handle this?
новым игрокам будет
It's
каково?
pretty endgame, and that means
Говорят,
you
что
have a pretty
это
good understanding
довольно-таки
by
в
the time you
эндгейме.
get to it. It's also
В принципе, если
introduced
ты
at
уже
a
до тут
rate that's
дошел, ты
relatively
что-то
manageable.
понимаешь.
You get it in pieces, and
Плюс ты
it's kind
получаешь
of
это не
optional as
сразу,
well.
а
Like
по
putting
чуть-чуть просто
watchstones in,
опционально
sure,
ты
it's
можешь.
complicated if you want to roll the best ones, but you're unlocking these over quite a period of time. Like they are
Ты
valuable,
там
they are endgame
постепенно
rewards.
играешь,
You
ты
do
в
need to get them one at
принципе
a time, and you have
все
control
равно
of
их
what the mods are.
разлочишь.
And so it doesn't really matter if you make mistakes there,
Не
because it's
очень
just going to mean you get
важно,
worse rewards for your content. And so we don't think it's going to
напортачил
hamper
ты там
anyone's
их как
enjoyment of
с
the
ними
game
или
if
нет.
they're not maximizing the system. But of course, as they learn more about it, they will certainly benefit.
Но при этом,
And
да,
as
чем
you know, with
больше
a free-to-play
ты
game, many
разбираешься,
players who play it don't quite get through to red tier maps, and we're okay with that. But those who do will certainly have a lot of stuff here that they can play.
Right, I gotcha. Yeah, unlike regular watchstones, it
да,
doesn't stop you from
при
progressing so
этом,
much as just
типа, не особо много
give
людей
you
доходят
extra
до
reward in
высоких
getting the
красных
system well.
карт, но зато
So
эти
it seems
люди
like there's
в
actually
том
quite a
числе
lot of
получат
extra
опцию
reward
там,
here.
так,
The
тем еще
passive
поиграться,
trees
почему
in
нет?
collaboration with these new craftable watchstones. From what I saw of those passive trees, there's a lot of
По
stuff like
поводу
guaranteeing generals and
Ascendancy 3
legions
для
and stuff like
деревьев,
that are juicing up the rewards quite a
связанных с
bit.
различными механиками, типа легион и так далее.
How much more rewarding do you feel the Atlas is
Насколько
going to be? And I guess
более
you guys are comfortable with
больше наград у
how
нас будет
much
в Атласе?
extra we're going to be getting?
Well, part of it is that for a while, players have complained. A word they often use disparagingly is clutter, that the end game has a lot of alternate systems that you can choose between. And while we philosophically believe that it's great for there to be a choice of content for people to play, and
Они
they should
говорят
play
то,
whatever content
что
they enjoy the
они
most and are
полагают,
best at,
что
we
игроки
want to
должны
allow them
иметь
to double
возможность
down on
выбирать
content. We want them to be able to say, I like this, I want to see it more often, and I want to see it be more rewarding. And that way, you
сайд-механики.
customize what you want to be playing, and then you
Вот,
play
это,
that, and you
и
get
эта
good
система как
rewards
раз для
for it.
того,
And that
чтобы
enables you to trade those rewards to people who did other stuff. So, for example, if
выбирать
you
те
just
награды,
hate
которые
Incursion, you
нравятся,
never want to touch a temple in your life, but you
и
want double corrupted items, you just do heist or harvest or whatever it is that you enjoy a lot and trade those items for the double corrupted ones. And so both the watchstones and the Atlas passives here
тут
allow
получается и
you to influence
watchstone, и
content that you're encountering, make it more
пассивки
rewarding,
Атласа,
and basically specialize, while still
они
making
позволяют
sure that there's a
специализировать
broad
Атлас
base
под
of Path of
что-то,
Exile content
что
for
вам
you to
больше
experience
нравится.
if you do want to try something new.
Но при
I've
этом
always
можете
really liked the
поменять,
idea of us being
как
able
бы,
to really
спекнуть.
specialize in certain pieces of content. And we've seen, I think, a progression towards more and more of that, which is pretty interesting to see. It almost seems like a step towards giving us the ability to choose which of these things, like you mentioned, people saying that there's a bit too much clutter. There's like the option to effectively choose now
Ну, в
which
общем,
ones
да,
you actually
говорят, что
care
это
about.
хорошая опция, чтобы
We've
уменьшить
certainly discussed
количество
ideas of
бардака,
reducing the
которые
base rate and having the
на
stuff
картах.
amp it up. And, you know, that's a change we might even see before release, potentially, depending on how balancing goes. But we do want content to be available that you encounter occasionally, even if you've chosen to specialize in other things. It's nice to occasionally run into it, to have an opportunity to try it. That's the only way a player is going to work out that they actually can do that content and that they do like it. And so, you know,
Да, говорю, что
there's
при
plenty
этом
of time in the future to
все
tweak this in
равно,
future expansions, but it's likely that we are not just going to turn content outright off and hide it away.
It's almost like they're little
да,
demos to tempt you into
да,
maybe
все
trying to
равно
specialize
на
in those
картах
and seeing
должны
how you go.
встречаться
Like I
разные
keep seeing
механики, чтобы те
these
люди,
legions
которые
and
с
stuff.
ними
Wonder
никогда
what
не
it'd be like if I
взаимодействовали, могли понять,
specialized in
нравится
those.
им это вообще
Yeah.
или нет.
Interesting. Okay.
Я
How hard is
спать
it
не
to
буду,
respect these Atlas
это
passive
вредно.
trees? Are they something we're adjusting really often or leaving intact most of the time?
So there is a currency that lets you refund it, and that currency, of course, has a value.
Значит, да,
It's,
можно ли
I
рефаундить
mean,
эти
how long is a
ветки?
piece of string, right?
Говорю,
Like,
что да, есть
you're not going to be able to do it
новая
super
валюта,
easily, but
которая
wealthy endgame players can absolutely, you know, respec
позволяет
as much as they need to. It's
респекать
just going to cost
ветки
them, and
в
there's going to be an
Атласе. Это
opportunity
будет
cost
что-то
for that.
стоить.
Now, there are strategies, of course, where you may want to respect these aggressively. You might work out that the best way of getting currency is to actively manage what Atlas passives you've chosen. And to do so, of course, that's going to burn a bunch of currency achieving that. And players will work out the right amount to do that's still profitable for themselves.
Yeah, I imagine this is like something when people are doing the like fully juiced content where they're stacking sextants and everything else to get specific content. That might be something they adjust to synergize with those things once they like get the stars to align for
exactly. And honestly, because this, like most things in Path of Exile, is a market-driven thing.
Поскольку большинство вещей
then the respec orbs will inevitably be very cheap, and that means you can respec easily and there's no problem. And if
можно
it's just
покупать,
insanely
продавать.
profitable to respec dynamically, then people will do that and it will make it expensive, and we'll just have to have a look at the effects of this and rebalance it later on if
То
needed.
можно ребалансить, типа, редкость этой валюты, видимо, которая респект и так далее.
You mentioned that the Maven is the first. So, is this planned as an expandable system with more people like the Maven, more creatures like maybe?
The Eldritch entities that have noticed that the Elder is missing. Maybe we'll see more in future expansions. Who knows? I mean,
спрашивают, будут ли еще какие-то боссы.
Decades of lifespan left to spend on this project, so
он не ответил. Он говорит, что может быть.
I'm a sucker for things like that where you're like hinting at the fact that there's like an expanded kind of lore universe here that's going to draw from. I thought I'd ask. I figured it would be a maybe answer though.
Yeah.
Let's move on to ritual.
Значит, перейдем к лиге ритуал.
It says that we pull monsters to them or that we kill monsters in the area. Are we intended to pull monsters to these ritual sites, and do we pull bosses?
Должны ли вы затаскивать
мобов
внутрь?
Because if it counts the monsters that are nearby,
говорит, нет, не надо.
Benefit for pulling monsters there, then the correct behavior is to grab half the map and drag it to a ritual.
Ну да, потому что он говорит, что мы так не стали делать, что иначе бы реверт-циклоном все засасывали бы.
And it has a bunch of extra monsters on it. And so those monsters that are near it,
то есть на алтаре, рядом с алтарем, там сколько-то мобов и так стоит довольно много. Ты их переубивал.
Clear the ritual by killing all the monsters nearby, and it'll be a decent fight. And then you tag the ritual
После этого ты
altar, and that
тегаешь,
resummons all the monsters in
и
a
он
staggered
ресамонит.
formation as you're fighting against the effects of the altar. And we didn't make it super clear in the video, but there are lots of different types of altars with lots of
При этом очень много разных типов алтарей с разными аренами.
Mission where it's slow paced. This is something that's really throwing monsters in your face. It's meant to be a fast paced, bite-sized combat encounter. And then each of the subsequent ones that you do has all those monsters and more. And so because they ramp up in difficulty and reward, we totally expect weaker players to like call it and not do the last rituals in the area if it's just getting too hard for them. And so it's meant to be a thing where you do as many as you feel you can handle, which I get it for most people that have, made an effort to watch this stream probably means all of them because they're good at the game. But you never know, it might get pretty hard for you.
And just trying to flatter the crowd. You're also
it is true that the top 10% of players are the ones that are watching right now. They're making an effort about the game.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of items in this store once you like finish the ritual that you can purchase.
Айтемов, которые ты можешь получить за
do the rares in there use the new high quality rare generation system that we saw a taster of in Heist?
Some of them do. There are basically different categories of things that
работают ли они таким же образом, как в Хайсте, типа
favors of what we're calling the items you buy with tribute. And so some of them are templates that generate high quality rares where it biases them.
Там будет несколько темплейтов наград. Некоторые из них рарки с улучшенными типа качествами, типа как вот в результате Гранд Хайстов. Некоторые просто рандомные штуки. Есть типа инфлюенсные штуки. Говорят, что типа инфлюенсные штуки не обязательно будут хорошо наролены, потому что в первую очередь типа инфлюенсные. Вот. Условно говоря, мы выясним, что там будут разные типы предметов, по сути.
It like reveals a bunch of items for the first ritual of that map, and there's multiple rituals per map. Do the later rituals in the same map add more items to that same stock, or are they a new stock of items each time?
So the way it works is that the items are in
одинаковые там шмотки будут или добавляться будут?
So those ones, if you check back at the footage, have like a little icon over them shrouded.
То есть изначально некоторые шмотки будут спрятаны.
That we use occasionally stuff, but that looked real weird for it to be a bunch of birthday presents basically in the window. So the unrevealed items are there, and the reason why is so that you don't just cycle doing the first ritual in each area repeatedly until you find one with good rewards. The incentive is that you actually play through the rituals to get to the more advanced items.
То есть прикол в том, что чем больше ты убиваешь мобов в этих ритуалах, тем больше тебе открывается.
Obviously, the best strategy is probably to do all the rituals first before deciding what to buy. That's fully intentional, right? It's not gaming the system to save
лучшая
money
страта
and make a
это
fully informed choice.
сделать все ритуалы на карте, а потом уже шопиться. Но это не обязательно делать. Если ты там, условно говоря, ищешь Хаос Орб, и тебе с первого раза падает, можешь сразу купить
you can make purchases early on if you choose to.
Но при этом ты можешь
Making it so that we don't like
типа
cycle the first thing in a map
все
and jump
ритуалы
straight into a new
закончить,
map,
потом
and
уже
making it
будет.
so that we can like defer items for purchase later. I feel like you're learning from our behaviors and complaints.
Yes.
Thanks. It's good. Does any of the like unique ritual loot or any of the like ritual-ish loot, such as new bases or uniques, drop from monsters during the rituals as well? Or are all the
Дропаются
new
ли
things purchasable
новые
from this favor
базы
store?
и
They're all
шмотки с
purchasable from the
мобов?
favor store. So the
Или только они
rewards,
покупаются? Говорят,
the
что
new
только
rewards do
покупаются
not drop from the
через
actual monsters while
трибьют.
you're fighting it. And we did that because we wanted the player to have to make a informed decision to pick that item, a chance for them to be presented with it and decide it versus other tempting things at the same time, to have a bit more gravitas there.
Okay, so I'm curious about these ritual vessels then. So they capture monsters from a ritual site to use in later maps. Is this instead of doing the ritual or like an after thing after you finish the ritual?
It's an after thing. So you do a ritual, and if you think,
Сделаешь
man,
ритуал,
that was a lot of monsters, somehow I got like a boss in there. I kind of feel there's a lot of tribute. Let's capture it, and then you capture it after it. So you still got all the benefits of killing the monsters, all the tribute you get your reward from that, and then you have a chance of capturing that,
то есть ты
so
там,
that you can use it to juice a map
да,
up
ты
later.
потратил трибьют, а потом ты
I
можешь
imagine
засейвить
the
какую-то
ritual
опцию.
favor points based on the monsters you kill. So does having a boss in there give you a lot more or something?
Absolutely, yeah. You'll get an idea for what just gave you a lot of favor, and that's when you stick it in a bottle and use that to juice up a map later. And it's one of those things where not only do the ritual vessels give you a bunch of favor by using them on a map, but it
Вот,
also just
ну и
makes better rewards.
шмотки ритуал
And so
весселя,
you'll
они
get a totally
позволяют
juiced map. You know, you'll chuck
типа
Beyond
как
and
раз
Delirium on it, throw as many of these
запомнить,
vessels as you
условно
can in
говоря,
there, and
разные
just have an
опции.
absolutely insane time, and then get a boatload of tribute, and really hope that you have good rewards in the window, and they will be better than average by that point. So, you know, I'm not guaranteeing you'll see a hit under then. I'm sure many people won't do. In fact, most people won't do, but you never know.
I instantly saw the potential here for like some sort of infinite loops. I'm wondering if you've counteracted that. The ritual vessels apply the captured monsters to all ritual sites in a new map. If you use a ritual vessel on the new map that is already enhanced, do you capture more and then can take that to the next map and then add infinitum?
We thought of that one. You can only use ritual vessels if you haven't used any on the map that you're playing. So it has to be on a vanilla ritual site.
Okay, so it's kind of like a one-on-one off
Что
deal.
Yeah, which honestly isn't a
эти
problem.
ритуал весел применяются только на чистую карту, которая без ритуал
You're
весела
thinking of
была.
everything. All right.
That's one of the advantages of having the extra month, right? Like our
Ей.
goal was to release this in December, and we've taken extra time to actually, you know, QA stuff as thoroughly as we can do, and to think of these things and put time into balancing it and making it good and making a good announcement stream, and you know, it's been really helpful.
Yeah. You had an extra month or two, roughly.
Yeah, 1 month.
Говорю,
of
что
extra
да,
time.
ну, за
And
счет
sure, I mean, there's still things being
дополнительного времени
tweaked,
как
right?
раз.
Like, you know, people were away over, you know, Christmas and New Year during that time, and not everything was finished at exactly the point we wanted to a month ago, but it's certainly very smooth sailing through that period while we're working on 3.14 at the same time as putting finishing touches and testing on 3.13. Like, I believe that we have a 99% functional alpha build being deployed today for the alpha testers to start giving us a week of feedback on. And I know it sounds crazy for us to be making a big deal about alpha testers having a week to test it, but normally we're like, you know, we're launching tomorrow. It's not done. The league's turned off. The bosses are turned off. Go. And there's nothing to test apart from does it crash. But now we actually have every single thing is there kind of
Говорит, что
situation for
наконец-то
alpha. Though it's worth noting while I'm talking about alpha,
было время
because there's
потестить,
various
наконец-то.
competitions and that kind of stuff being arranged for league launch, and obviously alpha testers would have an advantage. One of the rules that we're putting in place is if you've played on alpha for a given
Говорит,
expansion, you're not
что,
eligible
ну,
to receive prizes.
по поводу
And so that's
альфа-теста
a big
они
decision that
особо...
alpha testers are going to have to make, where if they're actually like a top tier streamer who wants to compete, they probably shouldn't be signing up for the thing that gets them a competitive advantage.
Ну да.
Absolutely.
Говорит про,
If you've had a chance to
про
pre-play the content, you won't
альфа-тест.
be able to
Ну,
win
есть
prizes.
ли у
You can still
некоторых
compete,
людей
but, you know,
доступ
people
к
will know you're an
альфа-тесту и
alpha
так
tester and
далее.
don't actually get anything for winning. And so
Вот.
that's our attempt at making sure that with a properly functional alpha testing program, we have a degree of fairness in there.
That's really like surprising and awesome to hear. Like, because I feel like this has always been like a little thing in the background that's never really been fully acknowledged. That's really awesome to hear.
And I want to emphasize, because I can already see my email box blowing up. Please do not email me or other staff members asking for alpha access. It doesn't work that way. Like, we literally have a policy of if you ask, you're not getting it, kind of, right? So we have ways of selecting people. As the program continues to function better, we will add more people, but we'll do it in a
Короче,
fair way that
тестируют
gives
новую
people a chance to apply,
систему
or we'll select them based on
альфа-теста.
their merits. And the best way to become an alpha tester is provide consistent.
Ой. Ой-ей. Ой-ей. Да ё-моё.
Tired.
So you'll randomly encounter a Sharpie relatively rarely, so you'll stumble in there expecting to get choices of crafting options, and there's the tree ready to go with the Sharpified.
Ah, okay, so it's just kind of a random spawn thing now.
Infrequently, yes.
Okay.
Ну, короче, бой с Шаби тоже будет. Wi-Fi прогресс.
And stuff, of course, to compensate for this.
Ah, gotcha. So to heist now, in the meta for getting the most value out of the system really became centered around the duplication of extremely valuable blueprints and running them infinitely for massive amounts of currency. Is anything happening that will affect
Он
this?
спрашивает,
So I
случится
want
ли
to
что-то
clarify
с,
that when Ziggy says duplication, he means through legitimate game mechanics. There are a couple of ways of copying
с
the
возможностью
blueprints.
копирования
And so,
блюпринтов?
you know, this is not an exploit-filled game if anyone is watching and worried about that.
Говорит, что да, типа.
But yeah, no, it's totally fine. There are mechanics that let you split the
Да, есть
blueprints.
механики, которые
where the
позволяют
problem with
сплитить эти
that
механики, да.
wasn't so much that the base blueprint was a good one, it was
Проблема
being
была
split, because there was a
не
cost to
с
splitting it.
тем,
It
что
was the fact
ты
you could fully
сплитишь,
reveal every
а то,
single
что ты можешь
aspect of it, and then that would just
узнать
carry on the
заранее
copy to
полностью,
copy.
какие
And
моды
so the first change we're
есть на
making here
блюпринте.
is that the split copies do not have any reveals. They're
Мгм.
basically like the rewards are the same, but they're entirely unrevealed again. And so
Мгм.
you can continue exactly the same strategy if you have enough reveals for every single copy
Ага.
and enough
То
markers
есть
to
они,
achieve
скорее
that.
всего, сделают так,
And that's
что
quite a big cost. That
ревилов
makes it
нету.
significantly less economically insane
То
to
есть
do
ты
it.
монеты
But
должен
it still
тратить
makes
на
it
то,
good to do
чтобы
it. Like it still means that if you put the effort into finding the perfect blueprint,
на
having
то,
the
чтобы
master
открывать
copy,
блюпринты.
going and
Ага.
putting effort into getting the
Ну, это
ingredients
логично,
you need
да.
to be able to split it, like the fossils or the base and
Логично,
stuff,
да.
you can still profit from this, but it's not quite as crazy. In addition, there's significant
Плюс
rebalance that went into the rewards, especially around those top-tier blueprints. So
ребаланс
the currency one is less insane, for example, and we're pretty happy with where this
наградах.
is. And when the community finds something awesome and profitable like that, we don't want to just turn it off.
Говорю,
You know,
что
we want to find a place where
если
now is
народ
a good,
находит что-то
you
клевое,
know, good
типа
location
профитное,
in the
то они
game to
не
exist.
стараются сделать
And
так,
so we're
чтобы
more
просто
happy with this
выключить это из
rebalance point
игры.
of view. We think that it will still be
Вот, они
potentially a
пытаются
good strategy for
отбалансировать
some
так,
players
чтобы
to
это
do,
было
but it
профитно,
won't be a
но не
ridiculous
так
strategy that
инсейно, чтобы
creates a
это
lot of
не было
good bets for the
единственной
rest of the
опцией.
community.
All right, good stuff. We have some questions from chat now. Thank you all for submitting your questions.
Вопросы из
First one
чата.
comes in from Notcakes. Will Atlas passive trees be tied to certain regions? So will
Будут
Beyond, for
ли
example, only be
пассивки
available
Атласа
on the less
привязаны к
proximal region and
определенным
no other?
I believe so. I'm
регионам?
just going to double check this
Говорит,
with my
что,
guys.
скорее
That's
всего,
true,
да.
right? Okay. Yeah, so most mechanics appear on a few
Большинство
regions, but yes, it is
механиков
true that if you want to do beyond,
появляются в
say,
разных
Glenn
механиках,
or
но
whatever,
при
if it's
этом не
not there,
привязаны к
then
регионам.
you do not have the ability to specialize beyond in that region. And so the experiment we're trying here is allowing people to specialize
Они
on certain
пытаются
areas of the atlas.
попробовать
It's not a
сделать так, чтобы
global thing where you're just
специализировать
juicing your entire atlas at once. You will have to find maps in that
разные
region.
регионы
Of course,
Атласа под
this can
разные
change over
вещи.
time. Give us feedback
Но
as you
это
play.
может
We think it's actually
измениться.
quite fun this way. It's certainly a more advanced way of doing it than what we could have done at face value, but we try to do it the interesting way rather than just say broadly a whole atlas is juiced.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for things not being fully homogenized, not all being the same, provides like interesting strategies and stuff that comes out of that. So it's good to see that. I imagine this also gives you another like lever that you can change in the future to shake up the atlas. Instead of just moving maps around, you can move what regions have what things, which could unlock new strategies.
Absolutely, yeah. It'll be really interesting to see how it pans out based on people's actual activity when they
Что
play.
да, интересно посмотреть, что народ придумает.
Arta Eva asks, as this league is boss driven, will there be any rebalance of XP or drops for boss encounters?
Будут ли ребалансы, дропы и экспы с боссов, поскольку это лига про
We
боссов?
haven't put any work into changing the experience and drops for those bosses,
Пока
but we
не
are careful
меняли,
to make sure that
но
they're in a good place. You know, if we saw any problems, we would fix it. But
они держат руку на пульсе по поводу этих тем, экспы и дроп с боссов.
Yeah, the team don't think it's going to take a lot longer. Most people get their boss fights done relatively quickly.
All right. Vice versa, 951 asks, can the Maven witness unique map bosses? If so, can there boss-specific loot drop in the boss rush?
No, you can't witness unique map bosses. That's something we certainly discussed and tried to achieve, but there are significant logistical issues on that one, so that's a thing for later.
Yeah, I imagine that.
Просто можно ли капчурить боссов с уникальных карт? Говорит, что нет, типа. Решили, что не будет.
Knockcake's got two questions. Will Atlas passive trees be tied to certain regions? So, oh wait, that is a repeated question. Oops, never mind. Casually Stoned asks, what order of rarity are we talking about with the new influence, Maven Orb? Something
Насколько
like
редко будет?
Mirrors?
They're estimating around the Awakener's Orb level.
Вот это вот новая арба,
Makes sense since it's,
деливация, она такая же по редкости.
That's a very clever non-answer there, Chris.
Yeah, no, it's only sensible as an Act 1.
Okay. Sylthia asks, do we get skill points for each of the 8 Atlas skill trees, or do we just get 2 points and have to choose which tree to allocate in?
It's all on a per region basis. So you can completely max out a single region potentially before you touch the other ones if you choose to. And so to specifically answer the question, as you do the multi-boss fights in a given region, you get points for that particular region's trees.
Ну да, все бафы, которые мы получаем,
roughly where does this line up? Is this like Awaken at 8, we're likely to have all the skill points unlocked, or is it significantly longer than that in terms of a tail of content?
Насколько дольше это или короче по сравнению с спауном 8-го Вагнера?
Okay, yeah, so they clarify that Awaken at 8 is about a good estimate for all regions, all trees, but to get all the points in a single region could be a fair while before that.
Okay, so that's like a longer tail thing that you can focus on, like unlocking. It's like you're
То есть unlockать,
settling into,
скорее всего, дольше, чем
unlock your longer term strategies kind of thing.
Unlockать все поинты
right? Like you're going to prioritize the regions with the things you want to be playing, and so you'll probably get those significantly further ahead than the ones where you're just doing it because you might occasionally play a map in that region and you don't really care about those mechanics.
Right. Same old asks, a rather interesting question. Can you drop craftable watchstones before you get all the normal watchstones?
Крафтовый watchstone, прежде чем ты
The craftable ones are super in-game rewards. Can you guys clarify? Yeah, you technically can.
То есть технически
you may not
можешь.
have all of your 32 watchstones by the time that you get by the time that you start to get craftable ones. But yeah, the craftable ones are meant to be mostly coming after.
Крафтовые, короче, не сильно позже должны появляться, чем...
Trade for them, right? Like you could earn a bunch of currency doing something else and then fill up your Atlas that way if that you feel is the best plan.
Блин, дичь, конечно.
Right. Zen21 asks, does the tier of the map bosses affect the captured boss, like how watchstones alter tiers of maps?
Влияет ли тир босса, который ты захватил?
I'm failing to parse this question mentally.
So if you capture a boss and wants mobs in like tier 10, does that affect if you apply it to like a tier 5 map? Does that make them really dangerous, or does it scale to the map that you apply it to, I guess?
Good question. Right. It inherits the area level of the map that you captured it in.
Oh, okay. So pay attention to that then.
Условно говоря, если ты захватил босса на 50-й карте, потом
So that's with respect.
Применила вот эту весель.
So with respect to ritual, it inherits the level of the one you captured, and with regard to the Maven, it has a fixed level per encounter.
Okay, gotcha.
So you're saying that the 3, 4, 5, and so on are at fixed? Yeah, okay.
Короче,
so when you're fighting 10 bosses at the same time, they're going to be tier 16 equivalently scaled ones, regardless of whether it was a low tier map that you captured.
Чем выше тир боя, тем выше тир боссов.
Yeah, you have to capture them in high tier maps in that case.
Да, потому что ты вынужден
капчурить их. That I don't get exposed to and working on this, that the guys who are physically setting them actually understand.
Yeah, I'll mention if you guys have like pretty technical questions, a lot of that stuff is really often answered in the kind of FAQ that's released a little bit closer to launch as well.
Yeah, Bex is looking into how much community confusion there is and will release an FAQ if necessary. It's partly that we're hoping that this Q&A helps solve most of the stuff because it's a good opportunity to clarify things and explain it in plain English and so on. But, you know, there'll probably be fine details we need to clarify afterwards.
Говорит, что более подробные штуки они в FAQ, скорее всего, выложат.
After watching the video, that I was just like super overwhelmed and it was hard to like process everything just because of the sheer amount of info in that like 30-minute reveal. So
да, что было бы неплохо, потому что куча инфы.
Kind of like settling into it.
Should we have slowed it down and like spread it out over an hour and just be chill about it as we go, or is it good to have that pace of content?
I think it's great for people to be like overwhelmed and freaking out and their heads exploding. They have like a week to get used to it all and figure it all out on Reddit and everything. So
спросил, стоило ли нам распределить это на час.
We just got right into it.
Yeah, totally. And we have, you know, this downtime and then class afterwards to you know, unwind a little bit and process. So that's good. Snoozius asks, who gets the choice/drop in ritual when multiplayer game?
Кто выбирает,
when playing with friends.
Если ты в пати играешь, кто выбирает награду? Ну, владелец инстанса, понятно.
You do not all get your own tribute. You do have to like work out what you're getting as a group and to share it. And it's usually based on implementation detail that we decide that. We ideally want rewards to be shared across the group where possible, but if it doesn't make sense for how we're actually structuring the league, then sometimes it's the outcome. And when doing it, we just make sure that there are enough rewards for playing as a group and you get the ability to share it out as you choose. If your group are bad at sharing, I would encourage you to take turns opening the maps so you each get the chance to be bad at sharing with your friends.
Но он говорит, что так что если вы не уверены, что люди умеют делиться в вашем пати, то по очереди карты запускайте.
Yeah. If the sextants spawn packs and the packs spawn within the ritual site, then it absolutely does affect it.
Скелет ли секстанты ритуалы, говорит, что да, если мобы внутри заспаунились там туда.
If ritual goes core later, potentially, we have not confirmed or decided, have no idea whether it's going core. It depends a lot on what people say. They like it, don't like it, you know?
It's significant to know that, like, just enhancing the map, effectively, you will add extra packs to the ritual site.
То есть, по сути, карты с более хорошие карты по плотности, они более хорошие для ритуалов, по сути. Типа Toxic Silver или еще что-нибудь.
My understanding is it does get larger. Let me just clarify with the guys. Yeah, so it does scale very slightly. So the range of number of rituals you can get does get higher as you get into higher tier areas.
Типа чем больше тиры, тем больше ритуалов мы будем встречать на карте. Вот, но немного больше будем видеть.
It reminds me of like a cross between like shrines and a beyond, a breach kind of encounter. So having like 3 or something seems like a lot of extra monsters per zone. What is the range here? Is it like 3 to 6, 3 to 5, 1 to 3?
Okay, like 4 is the cap, right? Yeah, 4 is the cap.
4 максимум пока что.
We're iterating on while doing our testing. You never know, the alpha testers might have feedback. You'll probably find that 4 is a reasonable number when you try it out.
All right, that does seem like a lot. Berkjam asks, are there going to be stash tabs for heist, harvest, and ritual?
Stash tabs.
We do not have any new stash tabs at the moment. I don't think ritual needs to have a stash tab.
Никаких сташ табов.
You get some vessels, but they're real rare, and you know you kind of use them as you get
Для
them.
веселов, но они довольно редко падают.
One item doesn't really warrant a tab for them.
Yeah, I mean we've been pretty clear about our policy for tabs now, where we've explained that if there's mandatory progression items, we'll provide free storage for them, and if there's optional reward style stuff that you would normally just store in regular tabs, then we may provide purchasable specialized storage for that for people that want it. And you know we're trying to find a sweet spot here where.
Не, в смысле на вактах-то будет, в каждой локе будет.
I think we have a question from Amy here. What are your thoughts on support characters, for example, Orobots and stuff like that? And how would you like to move forwards with that archetype in the future?
Well, I think it's really important that players have a lot of different ways of playing, and it's even interesting to see within our team how many people like playing support characters, including very, very senior members of the team, Mark. So we definitely want to make sure it's fully supported, and I think that because the person who has the title of game director on Path of Exile plays support characters, you're probably likely to see stuff in the future. What he's planning, I honestly don't know. That's above my pay grade.
I feel like they are generally insanely strong, and it's just like not that many people get into them for it to be a big problem. Whereas if like half the player base was playing support characters, it would be something you'd have to tone down.
Matt clarifies there's no bias whatsoever, but philosophically, I see Path of Exile as a game with many, many ways to play. If you want to sit and trade with people, just sit there flipping currency. That's a valid way to play. It generates currency. If you want to sit there working out the perfect heist, if you want to sit there
Для того, что я хотел, чтобы игра была... Ну, каратиру как хочешь. Если хочешь флипать шмотки на трейде, пожалуйста. Хочешь на Ороботе, да пожалуйста. Все эти опции, они позволяют более хорошие RPG-шки сделать.
What skill gem are you looking forward to using?
Какое изменение скиллов, ну, типа скилл-гемов тебе больше нравится?
Blankness when I realize I haven't actually gone through the patch notes yet myself.
Он говорит, не знает.
Mark and Andrew, do you have any favorite skill gem changes?
Не знает, потому что не смотрел patch-ноуты. Спрашивает Марка и Эндрю.
Okay, what happened with Scorching Ray?
Говорит, что-то...
Cast time got halved. Okay, so there's some excitement
что
about
Scorching Ray.
They
то, что
had a mandate
cast time
basically,
Scorching
and
Ray
not these particular
урезали.
developers, but the designers working on the skills had a mandate basically of, you know, buff as many skills in impactful ways as possible. And I think there are 40 existing ones, which is kind of an understated part of this expansion. There could have been a lot more attention put on that, but the goal is basically that no one knows what's best to play now. There's 19 sets of Ascendancy changes, 40 skills buffed. It should mix the meta up a lot more than most normal expansion releases do, and hopefully for a decent amount of time. Like, I don't think this one will be solved quite so quickly.
All right. World Creator asks, bearing in mind we're going to have a huge Ascendancy rework, what about the Scion? What are your thoughts on the Scion?
The Scion has been reworked as part of the expansion. So basically all 19 Ascendancy classes got attention, where we sat there and said, what are we doing with this tree? How are we changing it? 3 of them had quite large implementation-based sets of changes. The Inquisitor, Elementalist, серьезно переработали. Going through and reviewing each thing and changing stuff. So the amount varies from class to class, but we made sure the Scion was included. I personally am generally relatively happy with her place, and this is partly because if we make her too powerful, she jumps right ahead quite quickly, and so it's in a pretty good place, but you know, we don't want her to lag behind.
Вот. Говорит, что немножко потянули сцену тоже, да.
If you're going to implement the trade website as an in-game thing.
I don't see harm in doing this, and I kind of do think that it would be a positive thing to have the ability to embed a browser in the game so that you can directly link stuff, you can names to automatically whisper them.
Трейд-сайт внутрь игры.
It's not our philosophy with trade, right? Like, we're not against making things easier from a convenience point of view. It's more about the fundamentals of how trade works that we have a bit of philosophical views on. Having said that, there are interesting issues with getting it working in game to do with embedding browsers and the right middleware for that and various
есть разные проблемы, пока которые существуют, если пытаться встроить трейд внутрь игры.
Complicated development gets when you're targeting multiple platforms and consoles, and like, you know, like, let's say hypothetically you pick some middleware to embed websites in your game, and then that middleware may not work on like M1 ARM processor Macs, for example, and then our Mac users get upset at that, or it just requires a bit of work to get that kind of stuff going, and in the meantime people can alt tab.
All right, good stuff.
Or command key tab or whatever.
Is there any like thing you really want to point out to people, like your favorite thing from the announcement, since you
хочешь ли ты выделить что-то,
combed over this a few times,
что-то, что тебе больше всего в целом понравилось?
Mention to people, what was your favorite?
It's actually pretty difficult to pick what the favorite is.
Сложно выбрать здесь что-то одно.
Лига
сам по себе одна из лучших
kind of thing. The player chooses how deep they want to go with the rituals, and in the end game they can choose how deep they want to stack the amount of monsters. And the tribute is literally costing on various items from throughout Path of Exile's history and some new ones. And the deferral system makes some very, very interesting choices there, because you'll see really expensive stuff, and putting it on lay-by over time kind of makes it cost more over time, but you do actually get to afford it even if you can't today.
тем, что ты лочишь шмотки, и типа рискуешь ради них сильнее в следующем бою.
But it's probably going to be one of the more, you know, condensed fun ones that we've done for quite some time. Very true Path of Exile. The expansion just adds so much to the end game, and honestly, like, my amount of late end game Path of Exile play recently has been relatively low, so I don't even understand the depth of the expansion. Every time we're discussing it in the team, I realize that it's way more than I thought it was, and that's going to be exciting. So I'm expecting that to have quite a long impact on the end game for some time.
Типа сейчас так все добавляют, что у него самого нет времени прям в эндгейме много катать, поэтому сам посмотреть, насколько
And so I think that the unsung hero of it is going to be the fact that there's a lot of new viable builds and craziness that's going to be happening there.
Говорят, что еще, ну, те изменения, которые...
Also, you made golems respawn. Just wanted to point that out. That's awesome.
Yep. And there are a lot
то, что они наводили, очень много новых билдов и опций для них будет. Это круто.
Fantastic stuff. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for the Q&A, Chris. We're going to take a short break here on the live stream and then head on over to Bay Class to unpack a little bit.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you very much.
Это был здоровенный анонс. Это был здоровенный анонс. Вау. Это прям... Это очень круто, реально. Изменения Атласа очень интересные. изменение Ascendancy классов, это всегда круто. Это очень много места для паттов-билдинга. Сама лига смотрится тоже очень интересно. С одной стороны просто, с другой стороны решения прикольные. Плюс базы новые. Ох, поиграемся. Поиграемся. Как говорится, вот так вот. О.